This video will cover an introduction to statistics. So the first thing we need to cover are some vocabulary words, some terminology that we'll use throughout this video and future videos relating to statistics. So first, a population. In a study, the population is the group the collected data is intended to describe. So it might not be the whole population of the world. Maybe you're looking to study a local college. The population in your study might just be all students enrolled full-time at the college. So the population is just the group that you want to collect data on. Next is a parameter. And a parameter and a statistic are the two different things that you should use throughout this unit. A parameter is a value calculated using all the data from a population. So that's a parameter. A parameter is something you calculate based on the population. So that's if you know all the information for your entire population. But often it's not possible to get information on your entire population. It's very difficult to get data from every single person unless your population is rather small. So instead of using your whole population, sometimes you calculate values like averages or percentages based on a sample that you take from your population. So a statistic is something that you calculate based on your sample. So you can have a population average and you can have a sample average, and those may not be the same depending on your sample. So again, a parameter is for the population and a statistic is for your sample. If you can survey your entire population, it's called a census. So the United States has a census. I believe it's every 10 years. The problem with that is realistically, they don't get every single person. I think that's the goal, but they don't get every single person when they do a census. So a sample is a smaller subset of the entire population, and ideally you want a sample that represents your population. So if your population is diverse, you wouldn't want to take a sample, like let's say your population is half Caucasian, half African American. You wouldn't want your whole sample to be Caucasian. You also wouldn't want your whole sample to be African American, because either of those samples probably would not represent your population as a whole. So ideally, you want your sample to mimic your population as much as realistically possible. An observational study is one in which you just take down measurements on things that are happening naturally, that would be happening without you being there. So you might observe how many birds land on a certain light pole. You might observe how many cars roll through the stop sign at the corner. You might observe how many redheads enter the corner store. So those are all observational studies. An experiment is a study in which you are testing something. You are putting in a treatment or offering a treatment or offering an intervention, and then measuring what happens when you use that treatment or intervention. Qualitative and quantitative data are the next things that we'll talk about. So qualitative data or categorical data. So it's things that are in categories. Quantitative data are numerical responses. So qualitative data may be the color of your car. So that's qualitative. It's red, black, white, green, etc. Quantitative data may be the mileage of your car. So how many miles per gallon does your car get? That would be a quantitative piece of data. So let's look at some examples. So number one, Pasadena has approximately 62,000 registered voters. There is an upcoming vote for a bond supporting local schools that will raise taxes by 0.25%. 2 days before the vote, A telephone poll of 500 randomly selected voters was conducted to see if the voters supported the bond. We have 4 parts now to answer. A is describe the population. So the population would be, let's see, the registered voters of Pasadena. So Pasadena's registered voters. What is the size of the population? 62,000. So probably you're not going to be able to talk to all 62,000 registered voters. So instead, you're going to do a sample. So they conducted this survey by sampling 500 randomly selected participants. So, oh wait, that's a sample size. So describe the sample. It was 500, I guess I can put the size there, that's fine. Randomly selected registered voters. And it doesn't say of Pasadena, but we're going to assume that that's the case. What is the sample size? 500. So they sampled 500 Pasadena registered voters out of the 62,000 possible voters. Decide if each of the following describe an observational study or an experiment. So you should be able to pick out which is which. And actually, let me go back really quickly. For number 1, if I wanted to find some kind of an average for part D using the sample size, it would be called a statistic because it's based on the sample. And if I was able to get information on all 62,000 voters and I could calculate some kind of an average, that would be a parameter because it would include all of the possible voters. Okay, so number 2 and 3, we're trying to decide if it's observational study or an experiment. The brand of yogurt each shopper buys at a local grocery store was recorded. So from that, you're not doing anything except recording what they buy. You're not asking them to buy anything. You're not intervening in any way. So since you're not intervening in any way, this is just observational. So an observational study. Number 3, a group of students is required to attend tutoring each week, and their test scores are compared to a group of students who are not required to attend tutoring. So you can see that you're putting in an intervention. So some students are required to attend tutoring. So this would be an experiment. You're requiring something of some students and not others, and then you're comparing their test scores. Okay. For numbers 4 and 5, we want to decide if the data collected are quantitative or qualitative. A student conducts a survey to determine their classmates' favorite musician or band. So this will be qualitative because it's not numerical in nature. Number 5, a student conducts a survey to determine how many hours their classmates listen to music each day. So the number of hours they listen to music is numerical, so it's quantitative.